Welcome to Dare I Said It podcast, exploring first principles in entrepreneurship. I'm Vijay Jagan. Anybody else frustrated with the whole hiring process in general in our industry? No, just me. Okay. I've looked at hundreds, maybe thousands of resumes in my career, probably. What I noticed the most is how much I cringe having to read the resumes. Like so many, I don't know what to look for. And because they all look the same, right? Everybody's read through all of these articles and say this, say that, format it this way, or format it that way and it's like there's so much out there like no wonder candidates are getting confused because heck we are confused as hiring managers and entrepreneurs. So it's like, okay, let's think back to first principles. What the hell are we trying to do here? Why is it so frustrating for everybody, right? And besides the fact that there's not enough tools out there, LinkedIn definitely helps. One giant step forward, in my opinion. It does feel like a long way to go. But the people side is what we need to fix, right? So looking through all these hundreds and thousands of resumes in my career, what is number one frustrating is the same thing. Just going through the screening process. This is why we have recruiters to help us screen through some of these because most resumes sound exactly the same, right? For a given job, right? It's just boilerplate answers. There's a lot of advice out there. Make sure it's formatted this way, make sure it's formatted that way. And make sure you put an objective. Don't put an objective. Put only references. You name it. It's just like so much advice, right? And so they try to make it as perfect as possible and send it to the hiring manager. Hiring manager look at it and go, most probably he's trying to pull their hair out, trying to figure out, okay, who are you? Right? That the basic question. This is the first principles thinking. What we as a hiring manager want to get to know the person, right? I'm asking myself, so what I'm okay, wait a minute. If I'm getting the resumes in a very boilerplate, boring ass way, by the way, it's innovative jobs is what they're applying for. And clearly the resumes are not as innovative. But let's look back. What am I asking for? As we as a company, what are we asking for? Okay, well, where is that? Where is that? That's a job description, right? And you look at the job description, equally worst, maybe even more worse than the resumes that I get, frankly speaking. And I've written some too. So I'm not by no means I'm saying I haven't made these mistakes because I've beat myself up many times in the past having to sound like everybody else because they don't know what job it is. Yes, they do know I need to have a Java. Yes, it's a senior software engineer. Yes, it's a product manager. Yes, it's a designer, but that doesn't tell them much for them to really get excited or say, no, I'm good. Right. That's what we're looking for. Right. Even at the start. Right. That doesn't work. So you have to figure out, you have to communicate upfront a little bit more information so that we can do some kind of screening at the beginning. Right. With getting no information and having to have someone screen so that, oh, is there a voice, is somebody behind this resume and stuff like that. So why is that? Because you were not getting anything from it. Okay, enough of my rant. So, and if you look at the just standard job description, it's ridiculous, right? Experience in, as this is my favorite one, by the way, experience in agile or scrum methodology. What? That's a job requirement? Experience in agile? Really? After this many years, we have to put that in there? And what if I don't have experience in agile? Would we not hire, or would we try to teach them? Right? Especially, is that a stopping point? Like, seriously, if a candidate worked out of UC Berkeley, he has, I don't know, PhD or master's degree in computer science, starts his or her first job, and they've never heard of or tried agile methodology. They probably have in the school, but probably. But let's say they haven't. Are you telling me we wouldn't hire them because of that? Like, why put that on here? I don't understand. Anyway, I'm going on the extreme end, right? Because there are things like minimum 5 years of object-oriented programming. Okay, if you know the company, if you know enough of that, of course, don't you don't we don't have to say the specifics because great engineers can get into any culture, almost any language, and it's as long as they understand the cause, they and they're very sharp, and then they can just run with it, right? That's That's what we're looking for. It's a great engineers that can adapt to many different environments. So, on that note, what are the three key traits of great startup talent? That's what we're going to talk about. So, having said all of this, we are where we are today. That's fine. But let's see where we can go from here. Let's think in first principles what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is get to the superstar candidate. I ask myself, okay, what is the trait that we're looking for? So let's talk about that. We'll, in the future episode, I do want to discuss how to do job description. How do we properly do job description? We can explore together, right? Like that's a separate episode. But today, it's really about focusing on three key traits of great startup talent, right? And so on that note, let's get started. Three traits of a great talent, great startup talent. Number one, every time. There you go. Number one, passion. And yeah, we've heard it all. Yes, VJ, they have to have a passion. We all know that. Thanks for telling me the obvious. No, 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 no. Hold on. It's like I want to be very specific on what I mean by passion, right? It's the type of person that who tends to be passionate, right? Passionate about everything. But you could usually tell fairly quickly if you talk to them for 5 minutes. But you'll get a sense at least, right? I'm talking about type of passionate people where they have to believe it to be driven. That's their fuel to be able to understand what the company is trying to do, to be able to understand what we're all trying to do as a team and the project. And they're sort of join the cause. Then that's the fuel within. You don't have to constantly motivate them. They sort of motivate themselves, if you will. They're self motivated. That's part of the passionate as well. And what's interesting about passion, right? This is something I've said this so many times in my career. It's like passion leads to talent. In other words, talented people tend to be very passionate people. But why? If you think about it, it's pretty obvious, right? Because without passion, we lack the discipline to persevere through the challenges of becoming talented, right? So because in order to be talented, my drum set, right, took me years. There's no way, I mean, amount of practice I have to do to get really good at this, like this is what most people fail, right? I would fail, right? The only reason I succeed is not because I have a great discipline. I do not have good discipline. I do not have a good discipline. How the hell did I stick with it? I don't know. Why? Because I'm passionate about it. Something about me I love about percussion. Percussion is my thing. I don't know what it is, and to me that getting good pain points, it's sort of pleasurable, right? I don't see that as a pain. Working out, for example, as you can tell, it's it doesn't do it. It's excruciatingly painful for me, right? It sucks. It's boring. I cannot turn that on, right? I can't discipline my way through waking up every morning at 6 a.m. and running 3 miles. Oh God, right? It doesn't happen. So that's what I mean. I think like a shortcut to finding talented people is finding passionate people. It's funny because it's easier to spot a passionate person within 15 minutes interview than someone who's talented, because talented you don't know for sure. They could be very well prepared, right? But passion, you can't fake it as easily, right? It'll usually come across. And by the way, this is not by any means I'm saying this is science. This is an art. I get it. We all need practice, right? And then you'll get the hang of it. And you have to make sure that sometimes they're introverts, but they're very passionate. So you got to pick that up. You got to that mistake I've made in the past. So you got to figure out how to get that out. Make sure that you set up a space, and when you're talking to someone, to hey, I'm trying to get to know you. That's all it is. It's not a test. I'm trying to get to know you. So the more I find out about you, be transparent, be yourself. Don't worry, I'm not here to test you. Goes a long way, right? We'll talk about the interview process and how to do that on that note in a whole nother episode that I have ton of stuff that's coming up. But for now, passion. You get the point. Number two, oh, I'm gonna get good at this. Just hang in there. Every single time this happens. Focus on sharpness. Now, what does that mean? I think we're all too busy trying to evaluate candidates on what they know, not what they can do. Right? So two different things in a sense. And I'm going to use these words. Just I know they're pedantic words, so I always say look for sharpness, not smartness. Right? It's like what? Of course we want smart people. It's like no, no. I'm just using that word to explain explain my point. Right? Smartness conveys like being resourceful. Being skilled, being knowledgeable. I can recite all the design patterns. I know all the OSI layers. I can easily break them down, and I know all the specifics. So these are like smart, right? You know a lot, right? By no means I'm saying that's not important at all, but it is important. But beyond that, look for sharpness. Focus on the sharpness. I'm less impressed of an engineer who can recite all the design patterns than an engineer knowing a need for one, right? So, and in order to do that, the engineer has to know enough, has to be aware of what he or she doesn't know, right? That's it doesn't bother me someone doesn't know, but it bothers me that they don't know that they don't know, right? That's bad, right? So it's good to know there are design patterns, but there's no reason memorizing it. But you know enough to be able to spot an area when you're coding to go, you know what? There's a pattern for this. I know, but I don't know what it is. Let me go read. Right? That's what it's about. That's sharpness. The sharpness is like conveys thinker, right? Adaptability, very analytical, like a detective minded, if you will. It's that's even more important. That's the icing in the cake, if you will. Okay, um, that's focus on sharpness. Next one, last one, my favorite one. This is so bad. Okay, humility. Yes, we all have to be humble, but man, it is such an important trait that you should actively look for as part of your interview process, right? It's I would far rather hire an underconfident, slightly lower skill engineer than an arrogant one. Why? Because former is coachable, the latter is not, because the latter is all about ego, right? Vijay, how do you know, right? How can I tell, like if somebody's an arrogant or overconfident? Let's not make the mistake, Vijay, of identifying like confident engineer with arrogant engineer. Um, very like this the pushback that I always get, which is a very valid question. This is a strategy that I use. I asked the candidate to explain a recent project that they're working on. So they're walking through it. Oh, I would stop them and say, why did you do it this way? Why did you build it that way? Right. So they would explain. And I would purposely take the opposing view, but respectfully, I'm just curious, but why did you build it that way and not this way? Uh, I would take that opposing view on purpose, right? Because I want to see how they react of a disagreement. And then I'm gonna be a little bit stronger when saying, I said, but I don't agree. I don't, are you sure? Like blah, blah, blah. So the minute you do that, that's when you know the difference between a confidence engineer than a arrogant engineer. Because what you want to detect is um, people who are willing to learn, willing to be wrong, right? That's the key. Not, I'm here to feed my ego. The minute you catch that, I don't care how smart he or she is, do not hire. I've never regretted that. Some of the greatest engineers, well, that doesn't make them great, but some of the greatest engineers in paper, I could not, and will not hire because of the EQ component. To wrap it up, passion, focus on the sharpness, and most importantly, humility. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And of course, a lot of this you have to have a basic skill set. That's not what I'm talking about here. That needs to be done as a separate screening, just screening process. But these are the elements that make or break the decision points, at least in my career. So these are the things you should be very focused on. Is what I'm saying. This goes with the culture. And it affects all sorts of things. On that note, keep daring. Love you all. Ciao.